Hello, welcome back. Time for this morning's Focus section. We're looking at the rapid increase in the number of Hindus fleeing Pakistan for India because they say they're being persecuted. Well, Pakistan is, of course, made up mostly of Muslims who Hindus accuse of attacks, kidnappings and forced marriages. Well, as a result, last month, 500 Hindu families crossed the border into India. In the last year, thousands have asked the Indian government to grant them refugee status. It's an issue threatening to worsen already tense relations between the two countries. This report now from our France 24 team in New Delhi and Pakistan.
This poor neighbourhood in New Delhi recently became home to 7 families from Pakistan. Sonar Ram, a Pakistani Hindu, lives here in a one-room settlement with her entire family. It was only a few months ago that Sonar's family fled Pakistan.
This is my husband's shop. This is what we left behind in Pakistan because our children were growing up and we were facing so many problems. There were many reasons for us to leave.
According to Indian authorities, there's been a rapid increase in the number of Hindu families coming from Pakistan. From 8 to 10 families per month, the number has now risen to nearly 400 families every month. Persecuted for being a minority in Pakistan, families like Sonar's are left with no choice but to leave.
They killed cows in front of us, which is sacred for Hindus. But it's more than that. They kidnap our daughters and force them to convert to Islam, and they force us to study the Quran. That's why we left.
Across the border in Pakistan, Sonar's family fled from a Hindu slum, much like this one in Hyderabad district. In the last few months, 25 Hindu girls have been kidnapped from this region and forced to convert. Fakiru's daughter Hina met the same fate, abducted and forced to marry a Muslim man. With no justice in sight, Fakiru is now getting ready to abandon his country and his daughter.
My grandfather and my father, they died in this country. We are living here, but if we have no respect, what are we doing here? We have no justice. I'll go to India with only my children and photos of Sena to remember her.
A kilometer away, it is prayer time for Muslims at a local mosque in downtown Hyderabad. Muslims here are well aware of the problems that the Hindu minority has been facing.
It's better that the Hindus leave. How long will they keep tolerating these atrocities?
There are so many atrocities against our Muslims in Kashmir. This is just a retaliation for that.
Despite the clear evidence, the Pakistan government continues to maintain that the hundreds who left for India last month have merely gone for a pilgrimage and will be back soon. Back in India, one of those pilgrims, Krishan Das, is sure that he's never going back. He lives with his family in this refugee camp in North Delhi and has appealed to a local court to grant him asylum.
In India, Hindus are a majority. Nobody can force us or threaten us in any way. That's why we feel safe here. We manage in little ways to start a new life. We're appealing to the Indian government to give us citizenship.
Bowing to recent pressure from powerful Hindu organizations, the Indian government has indicated that it may grant long-term visas in some cases. For now, Sonar and Krishan Das and hundreds of others like them continue to be without a country.
Well, we can now bring you more on this from our India correspondent Mandakini Galot. Mandakini, there have always been a small number of Hindu families wanting to leave Pakistan, but the figures have really leaped recently from 10 a month to 500. What's caused this huge increase?
Well, it's difficult to say what's causing such a large number of people to now move from Pakistan into India. What we do know is that this issue was brought to the fore in March of this year when a young Hindu girl told the Chief Justice of Pakistan that she had been abducted and forced to convert by marrying a Muslim man. She pleaded with the judge to return her to her family. Yet when she reappeared in the court a month later, she'd withdrawn her plea and said she'd converted willingly. Investigations from Pakistan revealed that her family had been threatened, her grandfather had been shot, so she agreed to remain silent. From there on, media reports started highlighting that cases of forced conversions were on the rise. This led to a bit of a panic. In fact, many of the families we met in India told us that they fled because they'd heard of such cases with other people and wanted to get away before it could happen to them. They left as a sort of precautionary measure.
Now, from your report, it would seem that governments in both India and Pakistan are reluctant to acknowledge the extent of the problem. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Both governments are keen to ensure that this issue is not blown out of proportion. India's Ministry of External Affairs has termed it an internal problem for Pakistan, and Pakistan, on the other hand, has said this is merely propaganda or the effect of the Taliban. Pakistan's president, of course, has set up an investigation panel to look into the grievances of the Hindus. But what we must keep in mind is that these two countries signed a historic trade agreement in May 2012, and they want to ensure that that agreement is not derailed in any manner. For Pakistan, trade with India is absolutely crucial as it's suffering from a great financial crisis. And for India, this is the first time since the Mumbai 2000 attacks that relations with its neighbor have been somewhat peaceful. So it's a shaky truce, but it's a truce nonetheless, so they're keen to keep it that way.
Now, Mandakini, we know that Christians in Pakistan also say they're being persecuted, as highlighted by the case of the young Christian girl arrested for allegedly burning pages of the Quran. What does all of this say about Pakistan's overall record on its treatment of minorities?
Well, first of all, minorities are discriminated against anyway in the constitution of Pakistan because no non-Muslim can ever become prime minister or president in the country. Christians constitute the largest religious minority within Pakistan. They're 1.6% of the total population. And the number of violent cases against them have been increasing. A recent case that comes to mind is that of Clement Shahbaz Bhatti, the only Christian minister in the Pakistani cabinet, who was shot to death in March of 2011 for speaking out against the country's stringent blasphemy laws. Moreover, Pakistan's record as far as minorities go is pretty dismal. The World Minority Rights Group, a global watchdog, has ranked it the 6th worst country in the world for minorities.
Mandakini, what about the other way round? Is the Muslim minority in India facing persecution?
Yes, certainly there is a great deal of persecution against the Muslim minority in India. In fact, it was only last week that a prominent Hindu politician was sentenced to 28 years in prison for her role in the 2002 Gujarat riots, where 790 Muslims were massacred in a communal conflict. And the government has also released an important report which confirms that the Muslim minority continues to lag behind the Hindu majority in health, education, life expectancy, and other important parameters.
Thank you very much, Mandakini. Mandakini Galat reporting there for us from India. And that wraps up today's Focus section. Do stay tuned. Stuart Norville coming up with more news and headlines in just a few minutes.